Commander Park Jun stood in the observation deck of the human flagship called the Prometheus. He looked out at the massive space station that belonged to the Galactic Council. The station was so big that it looked like a small moon hanging in the darkness of space. Park Jun could see his own reflection in the glass window. His face showed both confidence and worry at the same time. Humanity had done something that no other young species had ever done before. In just 300 years, humans had learned how to travel faster than light. In 50 more years, they had built cities and colonies across the Orion arm of the galaxy. They had done what thousands of older species could not do. They had grown fast, adapted quick, and become strong. Now, they were ready to join the Galactic Council and have a real voice in how the galaxy was ruled. Park Jun knew this moment was important. He had trained for years to be humanity's representative. He had studied alien cultures, learned their languages, and understood their ways of thinking. He believed that the Council would see how much humans had achieved and would welcome them with open arms. He believed that hard work and intelligence would be enough. But as his ship got closer to the Council station, Park Jun began to feel something wrong in the air. The messages coming from the Council were not warm. They were cold and strange. There was something else hidden in those messages, too. Fear. That fear made Park Jun's stomach feel tight and heavy. With Park Jun were two other important people. Dr. Kang Mi was the head of human science. She was one of the smartest people humanity had ever created. She understood physics, mathematics, and biology in ways that made other scientists look like children. Next to her was Captain Li Su, a military officer who had led human ships through dangerous space battles. Li Su was strong, brave, and always ready for anything. The three of them walked through the halls of the Council station. The hallways were made of materials that sparkled like diamonds. Alien beings of every shape and size moved around them. There were creatures with 6 arms, beings made of crystal that caught the light, aliens with skin that changed colors, and many others that Park Jun had only read about in books. When they reached the great chamber where the Council met, Park Jun felt his heart beat faster. The room was enormous and circular. At the top, sitting in large chairs that looked like thrones, were the leaders of 12 ancient alien races. These beings had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. They had seen countless species rise and fall. They had learned secrets of science and power that humans could not even imagine. Park Jun walked forward and bowed respectfully, the way he had been taught. He opened his mouth to speak about humanity's achievements. He wanted to talk about the cities humans had built, the problems they had solved, the diseases they had cured, and the stars they had explored. But before he could say a single word, the Verdani leader stood up. The Verdani looked like giant insects, with hard shells that glowed with an ugly green light. The Verdani leader's voice was sharp and cutting like breaking glass. "We will not listen," the Verdani said loudly. "We call for an immediate trade blockade against the human worlds. We will cut off their supply lines. We will starve their colonies. We will show them that the Galactic Council does not accept new species rising to power." Park Jun was shocked. His mouth fell open. This was not what he had expected at all. Then another council member spoke. This one was the leader of the Crystalline Collective, a race made of living crystal that could think and feel. This being's voice sounded like bells ringing, but the words were harsh and mean. "I propose something stronger," the crystalline leader said. "Classify humanity as a threat species. Isolate them completely. No trade, no communication, no contact. Let them sit alone on their little worlds and watch as the galaxy moves on without them." One by one, the other council members spoke. Some were less harsh, but none were kind. None welcomed humanity. Park Jun realized something terrible. The council did not want him here. The council had already made up their minds about humans before he even arrived. A small voice inside the chamber spoke softly. This was the leader of the Lumini, a race of beings made of pure light. The Lumini were known as thoughtful and wise. "Perhaps we should hear what they have to say," the Lumini suggested quietly. But the Verdani slammed his hard shell against the armrest of his chair with a loud crack. "No!" he shouted. "The decision is made. Humans are too wild, too unpredictable, too aggressive. They grow too fast. They change too much. They are a danger to the stable order we have built." The council voted. Only the Lumini voted against the blockade. Everyone else voted yes. The great chamber fell silent. Park Jun could hear the sound of his own breathing. He could feel the heat of anger and disappointment rising in his chest. Captain Lee Su stepped forward, her hand moving toward the weapon at her side. Park Jun quickly put his hand on her arm and shook his head. He did not want to give the council a reason to say they were right about humans being dangerous. "This is not over," Park Jun said clearly, his voice strong and steady. "Humanity will not accept this. We came here in peace, but we will not bow down to unfair treatment." Dr. Kang Mi moved toward the door. She was already thinking about what this meant for humanity's future. Her mind was working fast, creating plans and considering options. As the three humans walked out of the great chamber, the council members watched them go. Some looked satisfied. Others looked worried. The Verdani smiled, thinking his victory was complete. But Park Jun was not defeated. As he walked down the sparkling hallway, he was thinking about something that the council had revealed. The fact that they were so afraid of humanity meant that humans were more powerful than they seemed. The council's reaction meant that humans had real potential. The blockade and isolation were not signs of weakness in humanity. They were signs of fear in the council. Park Jun looked at Dr. Kang Mi and Captain Lee Su. In their eyes, he could see the same understanding. Something had changed in that moment. The age of humans asking for permission had ended. The age of humans taking control of their own destiny had just begun. The Prometheus was waiting for them in the docking bay. As they walked toward it, Park Jun made a decision. The Galactic Council had rejected humanity, but there were other voices in the galaxy. There were other species that might understand. There were species that had also been treated unfairly by the Council. There were species that lived in fear of the Council's power. Humanity was going to find them, and together, they were going to change everything. The Prometheus moved silently through the darkness of space. Park Jun sat in the ship's main command room, looking at reports from human colonies around the galaxy. The news was bad. Trade ships that were supposed to arrive at human worlds had been turned away. Supply lines that humans depended on had been cut off. The Galactic Council had moved quickly to enforce their blockade. Captain Lee Su walked into the command room with a serious expression on her face. She had been reviewing military reports. "The Council has positioned 3 battle fleets around our main colonies," she said. "If we try to break the blockade with force, they will destroy our ships. But if we do nothing, our people will suffer. Food will run low. Medicine will run out. Our children will go hungry." Park Jun felt the weight of this problem pressing down on him. He had hoped that humans could work within the system to prove themselves worthy. But now the system itself was attacking humanity. Dr. Kang Mi was working at a computer console, searching through old historical records. She had been quiet for the past hour, reading and thinking. "I found something," she said, looking up from her work. "Something that might give us hope." She moved to the main screen and displayed information about an ancient race called the Caltherian. The Caltherians looked similar to humans in some ways. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and could speak languages that sounded familiar. But their history was very different from humanity's. The Caltherians were confined to only 3 worlds 2,000 years ago, Dr. Kang Mi explained. By order of the Galactic Council. The council said it was for the Caltherians' own safety, but it was really about control. The Caltherians wanted to expand, to explore, to grow. The council would not allow it. For 2,000 years, the Caltherians have been prisoners of the council's rules. Park Jun began to understand what Dr. Kang Mi was thinking. If the Caltherians had been treated so badly for so long, maybe they would want to help humanity fight against the council. The largest Caltherian colony is on a world called Kepler Station, Dr. Kang Mi continued. It is far away from council space. We could reach it without running into council ships. Captain Li Su looked at the star maps and nodded. It would take us 2 months of travel, but it is possible. If we go there, we might find allies. Park Jun made the decision. The Prometheus changed course and jumped into hyperspace, heading toward Kepler Station. 2 months later, Park Jun stood on the surface of Kepler Station. It was a beautiful world with blue oceans and green forests. But he could also see signs that this world was held back. The cities were not as advanced as human cities. The technology was old and worn. The Caltherians had been stopped from progressing, forced to live with outdated tools and ways. A woman named Dr. Ryu Na met him at the landing site. She was a Caltherian diplomat and scientist. Her eyes were intelligent and kind. But Park Jun could also see sadness in those eyes. The sadness of someone who had been prevented from achieving great things. "Welcome," Dr. Ryuna said in perfect human language. "I have been expecting you. News travels fast across the galaxy, even through blockades." Park Jun explained humanity's situation and how the council had rejected them. As he spoke, he watched Dr. Ryuna's face. He saw anger flash across it. He saw understanding. "This is what they have always done," Dr. Ryuna said. "They allow species to grow just enough to be useful to them. But if a species becomes too strong, too creative, too independent, they stop them. They did this to us. They did it to many others." Over the next few weeks, Park Jun and Dr. Ryu Na held secret meetings. They brought together leaders from other species that had been suppressed by the council. There was the Torvak, a biological engineering race that had been forbidden from advancing their medical technology. There was the Nexari, a telepathic species that the council feared because of their mental powers. There were 5 other species, each with their own stories of how the council had held them back. In a hidden chamber deep under Kepler Station, these leaders sat together in a circle. The air felt heavy with years of frustration and anger that was finally being released. "The council calls itself a government of peace," said a Torvak named Goran. "But it is really a system of control. It keeps strong species weak. It prevents progress. It maintains power through fear." The Nexari leader, a being who communicated telepathically, sent a message that all could understand. "We have been silent too long. We have accepted their rules too long. Now a young species has arrived and shown us something. The council can be wrong. The council can be afraid. The council is not all-powerful." Park Jun stood up. Everyone turned to look at him. "I do not know if humanity and your people can defeat the council's military forces," he said honestly. "The council has been building weapons and fleets for millions of years. But I know something else. The council rules through the belief that they must rule. They believe no other species can be trusted with power. If we work together, if we show the galaxy that cooperation is possible, we can change everything." Dr. Ryuna stood up next to Park Jun. "I propose we form an alliance, a union of free worlds. We will not fight the council because we want their power. We will fight the council because we want freedom. Freedom to grow, freedom to think, freedom to fail and succeed on our own terms." Captain Li Su, who had been standing in the shadows, came forward. "And if the council tries to use military force against us?" "Then we will defend ourselves," Li Su said. "Not to conquer, but to survive. And we will do it as one." One by one, the alien leaders stood up. One by one, they agreed to join the Unified Free Worlds Alliance. Dr. Ryuna placed her hand on Park Jun's shoulder. You came to us in our darkest moment when we had almost forgotten how to hope. You have given us a chance to be free. That night, Park Jun sent a message to the Galactic Council. The message was simple and clear. Humanity and our allied species are no longer under the Council's authority. We are free, and we invite any species that wishes to join us in building a new future. The response came within hours. Council battle fleets were being sent to the location of Kepler Station. The Council had decided that these upstart species needed to be taught a lesson. They would not negotiate. They would not listen. They would use force. But as the Council fleets began moving through space, they did not know that they were moving towards something they had never faced before. A united group of species working together, each one bringing their own strengths, each one determined to be free. The age of the Council's absolute control was coming to an end, and they did not even realize it yet. The first battle between the Alliance fleet and the Council's ships happened near a star called Rax Prime. The Alliance did not want this battle. Park Jun had hoped for more time to prepare, but the Council had not given them a choice. 3 massive battle cruisers arrived, their weapons ready to destroy anything that stood in their way. Captain Li Su watched from the command center as the Council ships appeared on her sensors. The Alliance fleet looked small and weak next to them. The Council ships were huge, covered with weapons, and covered with armor that had stopped weapons fire for millions of years. Li Su gave the order. All Alliance ships, take defensive positions. Do not attack unless attacked first. I want them to fire on us first. The galaxy needs to see who the real aggressor is. The Council ships moved closer. One of them sent a message. Stand down or be destroyed. You have 10 seconds to comply. Li Su did not stand down. The Council fired. What happened next was not what the Council expected. The Alliance ships did not fall apart like they thought they would. Instead, something new happened. Engineer Anji was on a human research station hidden on a small moon. She had been working on something revolutionary. She had taken human propulsion technology and combined it with Caltherian theories about how space itself could be bent and folded. She had also learned from studying how the Torvac moved through water so smoothly and quickly, using the medium itself rather than fighting against it. The result was a new kind of engine. It did not just push a ship through space, it used space itself to move the ship. It was like the difference between swimming against the current and riding the current. It made Alliance ships move in ways that Council ships could not follow. As the Council weapons fired, Alliance ships suddenly moved in directions that should have been impossible. They dodged attacks by accelerating sideways. They turned in ways that would have torn apart older ships. They moved like dancers instead of like heavy machines. The Council pilots, who had fought in the same way for millions of years, could not adapt. They expected ships to move in predictable patterns. They had weapons aimed at where ships should be. But the Alliance ships were not where they should be anymore. They were somewhere else. Engineer Anji watched the battle from her station. She could see through the sensor feeds. When one Alliance ship got into trouble, she sent adjustments to its engine. When another ship needed more speed, she uploaded new settings. She was not just building weapons, she was creating a new way to fight. But Anji understood something important. Weapons alone were not enough. The Council would eventually adapt. They had fought wars for millions of years. They would learn. She sent a message to Dr. Kang Mi. We need to change how people think, not just how they fight. Dr. Kang Mi was in a secret laboratory with a scientist named Dr. Parkmin. Parkmin was a xenobiologist, which meant he studied how different alien beings thought and worked. He had made a discovery that was both exciting and dangerous. The Council species are old, Parkmin explained to Dr. Kang Mi. Very, very old. When a species lives for millions of years without changing, their brains adapt to that stillness. The council leaders think the same way now as they did a million years ago. Their patterns of thinking are locked into place. Dr. Kang Mi understood immediately. But humans are young. Our brains are still flexible. We have not been doing things the same way for a million years. We can think in new patterns. Exactly, Park Min said. And if the Caltherians and the other young species learn from humans, if they learn to think in new ways instead of following old patterns, they will be able to solve problems that the council cannot even see. Dr. Kang Mi began writing a training program. But it was not training for weapons or fighting. It was training for thinking. She taught the engineers from all the Alliance species how to combine their ideas in new ways. She showed them how to ask questions that challenged old answers. She helped them see that sometimes the best solution was something that nobody had ever tried before. A Torvak engineer named Zhou came to Dr. Kang Mi with an idea. Zhou showed her how human and Torvak biology could work together to create living shields. Not weapons, but protection. Shields that could heal themselves, that could grow stronger when exposed to danger. A Caltherian mathematician named Hole brought a completely new understanding of how space and energy could work together. His theories seemed impossible at first, but when human scientists tested them, they worked. The Nexari telepaths began sharing their knowledge directly into the minds of other species. They did not just tell others what they knew. They let them feel it, understand it, experience it in ways that words could never explain. 3 months after the first battle, engineer Anji finished her greatest work. She called it the Prometheus-class vessel. These ships were not the biggest or the strongest, but they were fast, smart, and flexible. Each one had weapons that could change how they worked in the middle of a battle. They had defenses that adapted to whatever the enemy tried. They could move in ways that surprised everyone. Colonel Ko Sung, who led the human military production, began building these ships. They came off the assembly lines faster and faster. The Caltherians built versions using their own technology. The Torvak designed versions that used biological components. The Nexari created versions that could work together through telepathic linking. The Council watched this progress with growing alarm. They had expected the Alliance to be defeated quickly. They had expected young species to fall apart under pressure. But instead, something unexpected was happening. The Alliance was not just fighting harder. They were fighting smarter. One of the council leaders, the Verdani commander, wanted to attack immediately. But other council members were afraid. They had fought many wars, but never against an enemy that could think in completely new ways. They had weapons and fleets that were bigger and older and more powerful, but power was not enough when the enemy kept doing things you could not predict. On a human space station, Dr. Kang Mi looked at the results of all the collaboration between human, Caltherian, Torvak, and Nexari scientists. She had created something that should not have been possible. A shield system that used all 4 different species' understanding of protection, energy, and physics. When this shield was tested, it stopped a weapons blast that should have destroyed a ship. The blast did not just fail to penetrate. The shield was still strong after the attack. It was stronger, actually, because the impact had shown it how to improve itself. Park Jun looked at all these innovations and understood something profound. Humans had not won these battles because they were better fighters. They had won because they were willing to learn from others. They had won because they believed that different ways of thinking could be combined into something greater than any single way of thinking could achieve. The Council had always believed that one way was the right way, the way they had done things for millions of years. But Park Jun and his people had discovered something the Council had forgotten. The future does not belong to the strongest or the oldest. It belongs to those who can change, who can learn, and who can grow. The Galactic Council realized that direct military force was not working. The Alliance ships were too fast, too unpredictable, and too well protected. So the Council decided to try a different approach. They would starve the Alliance. They would isolate them from trade and supplies until the Alliance people became hungry and weak and angry with their leaders. The Council made an announcement across the galaxy. Any star system or trading station that continued to trade with the Alliance would be blocked from trading with the Council. Any person who sold supplies to Alliance worlds would be cut off from Council markets. Any merchant ship that carried goods to Alliance space would be destroyed. The neutral worlds were independent stations and colonies that traded with everyone. They did not belong to the Council, and they did not belong to the Alliance. They were places where merchants and traders from across the galaxy came to buy and sell goods. These worlds were very valuable because they made money from trade with every side. The Council's new rule put the neutral worlds in a terrible position. If they continued to trade with the Alliance, the Council would destroy their economy. If they stopped trading with the Alliance, millions of people on Alliance worlds would suffer. Mothers would not be able to feed their children. Doctors would not have medicine. Elderly people would not survive the winter. The people of the neutral worlds gathered in meetings. They argued about what to do. Some wanted to help the Alliance. Some wanted to protect their own profit and trade with the Council instead. Fear spread across the neutral worlds like a sickness. Captain Li Su called a meeting with Park Jun and Dr. Kang Mi. "The neutral worlds are about to fail," Li Su said. "They will choose profit over people. They will choose safety over justice. In 2 weeks, the Alliance will lose access to half our trade and supplies." Park Jun was quiet for a long moment. Then he had an idea. "What if we did not try to win through military force?" Park Jun asked. "What if we won through showing the galaxy what the real conflict is about?" Li Su looked confused. "What do you mean?" "The Council believes that control is necessary for peace," Park Jun explained. "They believe that free choice leads to chaos. But what if we showed the galaxy something different? What if we showed them that cooperation through choice is stronger than control through force?" Dr. Kang Mi began to understand. "You want to go to the neutral worlds and help them, not as soldiers, but as partners." "Exactly," Park Jun said. "We send ships, but not warships. We send transport vessels full of supplies. We send medical teams. We send scientists and engineers. We show the neutral worlds that we do not want to control them. We want to work with them to make their lives better." Captain Li Su was skeptical. "This could be a disaster. If the Council attacks while our ships are undefended, they could destroy everything." "I know," Park Jun said quietly. "But if we are going to build a new galaxy, we have to take risks. We have to believe that people will do the right thing if we give them the chance." Li Su thought about this. She thought about the millions of people who would suffer if the Alliance lost access to supplies. She thought about the neutral worlds, caught between two forces, forced to choose, and she made a decision. "I will do it," Li Su said, "but I want some warships hidden nearby. If the Council attacks, I want to be ready to defend our supply ships." Over the next week, the Alliance gathered thousands of transport ships. They loaded them with food and medicine and equipment. They filled them with human doctors, Caltherian engineers, Torvac biological specialists, and Nexari healers. They created a fleet of help instead of a fleet of weapons. Captain Li Su led this fleet toward the neutral worlds. When the Council found out, they were confused. This did not fit any pattern they knew. The Alliance was supposed to attack. They were supposed to conquer. They were not supposed to help without expecting something in return. The first transport ships arrived at the largest neutral world, which was called Station Prime. The people there watched as human doctors got off the ships and set up medical clinics. They watched as food was unloaded in massive quantities. They watched as Caltherian engineers began fixing broken systems in their cities. "We are not here to control you," Park Jun said in a message broadcast across Station Prime. "We are here to show you what partnership looks like. We ask only that you remain neutral in body, but look with open eyes at what is happening. Something changed in the hearts of the people on the neutral worlds. For weeks, they had been told that the Alliance was dangerous and aggressive, but the people they saw getting off the ships were helpful and kind. The doctors were saving lives, the engineers were improving their cities, the food was feeding their hungry children. A merchant named Tho approached Captain Lee Su on Station Prime. Tho was an older man who had spent his whole life trading goods across the galaxy. "I have seen many things," Tho said. "I have done business with the Council for 40 years. They are efficient, yes. They are powerful, yes. But they have never cared about us as people. We are just markets to them, profit sources, but you are showing us something different." More and more people on the neutral worlds began to understand the truth. The Council was not protecting them. The Council was using them. The Alliance was not trying to conquer them. The Alliance was treating them as equals and partners. Word spread across the galaxy. The news networks that were still independent reported what they saw. Humans and Caltharians and Torvak were helping people, not hurting them. The Alliance was building things, not destroying things. 3 weeks after the first transport ships arrived, the leaders of the neutral worlds made an official announcement. They would not obey the Council's order. They would continue trading with the Alliance. They would join with the Alliance in building a better future. But there was more. The people of the neutral worlds did not just agree to trade. They offered something bigger. They offered to join the Alliance. They offered to become part of something new and different. 3 million people from the neutral worlds chose to leave their old lives and become part of the unified Free Worlds Alliance. They brought their skills and their knowledge and their hope with them. They brought merchants who could organize supplies and traders who understood how to move goods across the galaxy. They brought scientists and artists and builders and teachers. They brought the most valuable resource of all, people who believed in a better future. The Galactic Council watched all of this with growing fear. They had expected the Alliance to fail. They had expected people to choose safety and profit over dangerous ideals of freedom. But the opposite had happened. For the first time in millions of years, the people of the galaxy were beginning to see that the Council's way was not the only way. They were beginning to see that freedom, even when it was risky, was worth more than safety under control. One of the Council leaders, a being from the ancient Lumini race, made a statement that shocked everyone. "Perhaps we have been wrong. Perhaps we should listen to what the Alliance is saying instead of fighting them." But the Verdani leader disagreed. The Verdani had built their entire identity on the Council's power. Without the Council's control, the Verdani would lose their position of importance in the galaxy. "No," the Verdani said. "This must end, and I know how to end it. I will bring the Genesis weapon online. If the Alliance will not surrender, I will show them what real power means." The message came through the communication channels of the Alliance like a death knell. The Genesis weapon had been activated. The weapon was now moving through space toward the heart of Alliance territory. The Alliance had 30 days to surrender completely and disband, or the weapon would destroy multiple star systems and kill billions of people. Park Jun's hands were shaking as he read the message. The Genesis weapon was something that had only been mentioned in old history books and hidden council records. It was a weapon so powerful that it could make an entire star system uninhabitable. It could destroy planets, poison solar systems, and kill everything for light years around. Dr. Kang Mi was already in the command center when Park Jun arrived. She looked like she had not slept in days. Around her, other scientists and engineers were working frantically, searching through databases and old files. "I have been checking our records," Dr. Kang Mi said without looking up from her computer. "The Genesis weapon has been used before, 6 times in the last 5 million years. 6 entire civilizations were erased from history because they challenged the Council's power." Captain Lee Su was looking at the trajectory of the Genesis weapon. She calculated that it would arrive at the Alliance's main worlds in 29 days. There was no way to evacuate that many people. There was no way to defend against something that powerful. "We are finished," Lee Su said, her voice empty of emotion. "They have won." "The Council has weapons we cannot defeat. We should surrender and save the people we can." The command center fell silent. Many people agreed with Lee Su. What was the point of fighting if the only result would be the death of everyone? But Dr. Ryu Na, the Caltharian diplomat, stood up. She placed her hand on Park Jun's shoulder. "In our history, the Caltharians faced something similar," she said. "We believed we were defeated. We believed the Council was all-powerful. But then something happened. Something we did not expect. We learned to think differently." Dr. Ryu Na turned to address everyone in the command center. "The Genesis weapon is advanced, yes. It is powerful, yes. But it is still a machine. Every machine has programming. Every system has logic. Every weapon, no matter how powerful, was designed by a mind. And if a mind designed it, then another mind can understand it." Dr. Kang Mi's eyes suddenly went wide. She understood what Dr. Ryu Na was suggesting. It was dangerous and crazy and probably impossible, but it was not definitely impossible. "You want us to try to reprogram the weapon," Dr. Kang Mi said, "to change its targets or its function." "More than that," Dr. Ryu Na said. "We want to turn it into a message that the galaxy needs to hear." Dr. Kang Mi began working immediately. She assembled the best computer programmers humanity had. She brought in Nexari telepaths who could sense patterns and logic in ways that normal minds could not. She brought in Torvac specialists who understood biological systems and how to make living things interface with machines. One programmer was a young human woman named Dr. Hei Wan. Hei Wan had been trained in quantum computing, which meant she understood how computers could work in ways that normal physics said should be impossible. She studied the Genesis weapons systems and realized something important. "The weapon has defensive shields that prevent direct attack," Hei Wan explained to the team. "But the shields have a frequency. Everything has a frequency. And if we can match that frequency exactly, we can send signals through the shields without triggering alarms." For the next 3 weeks, Dr. Hei Wan and her team worked on creating tiny probes. These probes were so small that they could not be detected by the Genesis weapon's defense systems. They were designed to be invisible, to slip through the weapon's shields like water seeping through cracks in a wall. One probe would go in and learn the weapon's basic code. The next probes would slowly, carefully begin to rewrite that code, not changing it all at once, which would trigger alarms, but changing it bit by bit, so slowly that the weapon would not notice. It was like trying to reprogram a computer while it was watching you, without letting it know you were doing anything at all. Meanwhile, Park Jun was working on something just as important. He was gathering evidence, historical records, old communications. He was finding proof of everything the Council had done wrong. Every species they had suppressed, every civilization they had destroyed, every lie they had told. For the first time in the Council's entire history, the galaxy was going to know the truth. The Council was not an order that brought peace. The Council was a tyrant that maintained power through fear and force and the constant threat of weapons like the Genesis weapon. Park Jun went to Dr. Kang Mi with his evidence. "When Hei Wan successfully reprograms the Genesis weapon, we need to use it to broadcast something. We need to send the truth across every frequency, to every planet, to every being in the galaxy." Dr. Kang Mi nodded. "When Hei Wan sends the reprogramming signal, the Genesis weapon will become a beacon. Instead of destroying worlds, it will broadcast light and information across the entire galaxy. It will be impossible to ignore. It will be impossible to hide from. The 2 weeks before the Genesis weapon reached its target were the longest days of the Alliance's existence. Every day, Haiwan's team reported progress, but they also reported problems. Every security system was more complex than they had expected. Every layer of code was deeper and more complicated. With 3 days to spare, Haiwan reported that the reprogramming was complete. The Genesis weapons systems had been completely rewritten. Its destruction protocols had been converted into broadcast systems. Its weapons targeting computers had been converted into communication arrays. But there was a problem. The conversion would only work once. Once the signal was sent, the Genesis weapon would become inert. It would no longer be a weapon. It would be just another piece of dead metal floating in space. The Council would know immediately what had happened. They would know that humans and the younger species had been able to defeat one of their most powerful weapons through cleverness and cooperation instead of force. Park Jun made the decision anyway. On the final day before the Genesis weapon reached its target, Park Jun broadcast a message across the galaxy. He stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, knowing that billions of beings would be listening. "I am Commander Park Jun of humanity," he said, his voice steady and calm. "I am speaking to everyone who has been controlled, suppressed, and told to accept your place in the galaxy without question. I am speaking to everyone who has wanted more but been told no. I am speaking to everyone who believed in a better future but learned not to hope." Park Jun paused, letting his words settle into the hearts and minds of the galaxy. The Galactic Council is not all-powerful. The Council is not all-knowing. The Council is afraid. They are afraid because they know that if free beings work together, they can build something better than control, something better than obedience, something better than fear. As Park Jun was speaking, the Genesis weapon activated its new broadcast system. Information flooded into the galaxy. Historical records of species destroyed. Communications showing Council cruelty. Evidence of millions of years of lies and deception. The galaxy learned the truth all at once. From the oldest Council worlds to the youngest Alliance colonies, everyone saw what the Council really was. The Council's response was immediate, but they could not attack the Genesis weapon anymore. The weapon was already activated. They could not destroy the information that was already being broadcast, and they could not control the thoughts of billions of beings who were seeing the truth for the first time. Some Council members wanted to use other weapons, some wanted to continue fighting, but many Council members looked at their own worlds, their own people, and realized that everything they had built was built on lies. The age of the Galactic Council's absolute control was ending, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again.